Welcome to Talking Tactics, a show about insights and the results they ignite. I'm Safania Stevenson, a brand strategist and cultural analyst in the wonderful world of marketing. And every other week, I dig into the aha moments that changed everything for a higher education marketer. Each episode of Talking Tactics starts with an insight, following it from observation to action that created measurable results. We're talking about the breakthrough moments that happen with scrappy resources, and sometimes we'll even explore the tactics that, crash and burn, because there's also value in trial and error. Your next innovative idea might be hiding in your data, your hallway conversations, or your own gut instinct. So let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of Talking Tactics. And you guys, what do strategic plans and friendship bracelets have in common? A lot, apparently. So I'm super excited to talk about today's tactic. In the studio, I've got Anna McBrayer, Director of Marketing and Communications from Fort Lewis College. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun to be here.
So before we get started, tell me a little bit about yourself and Fort Lewis.
I am a graphic designer by trade, then art director, and most recently, the last 2.5 years, have been the director of marketing and communications here at Fort Lewis. Fort Lewis College is located in Durango, Colorado. So if you know the four corners, where you go to the monument and you put your arms and hands into all four corners of the of 4 different states, that is very close to us. So far southwest Colorado, right on the edge of the deserts and the Rocky Mountains. It's a beautiful location. We are Colorado's only public liberal arts institution. We're also a non-tribal native serving institution where we have a really unique cultural diversity on our campus. And that is important, both in location and just who we are and who we serve.
Yeah, so we are here, to talk about, you just gave this beautiful, I just see the landscape coming together, and then it's now strategic plan, and just everything just went to gray. So we're here to talk, but that is so cool because where you're located, kind of the culture of Fort Lewis and everything, I think really speaks to some of the really cool ways you all have activated, your new strategic plan. So when we talk about strategic plans, and I've been a part of quite a few in my career thus far, it becomes this big executive document that kind of feels out of reach to folks. Again, just paper. We got to get this out. Maybe people will look at it. Maybe they won't, but I know we got to spend time on it. So as you were thinking about the new strategic plan for Fort Lewis and how you wanted to activate it, what were some of the big considerations that came to mind for you and your team? Because you guys did some really cool stuff in how you've activated it thus far.
I think setting a backdrop of what we were kind of coming into is an important thing to note. So we were looking at launching a brand new strategic plan. We were starting the process of developing the committee to start taking input from all of campus. And very soon after we launched the work on the strategic plan, our president announced that he was leaving. And so you're at a crossroads where you go, okay, is this something we want to continue the work of, or is it something that we want to pause and wait for a new president to come in and help us navigate this? And the culture in Fort Lewis College is unique in that, you hear a lot about faculty governance, and yes, that's common in a lot of institutions, but we're bigger than that. We're more than that, in that it's really important. The culture of Fort Lewis is that we really want the voices heard from all across campus. And so that includes our staff, our classified staff, our administrative professionals, everyone, and our students and our community members. And so it was really important to have a ton of input from all of those different segments, meaning that this was not going to be a strategic plan that was top down. It was going to be built by the people who serve the students of Fort Lewis College, and really the people of the institution who serve this community in the Four Corners region.
So one of the things that you kind of mentioned as we were talking about like the strategic plan offline is, as you're developing your strategic plan, there is typically, you have your strategic pillars. We're going to focus on this and focus on that. There was a very intentional approach that you all took of like making sure that people understood that all the strategic plan pillars were to be prioritized equally. Can you tell me a little bit about your strategic pillars and why that was so important in the application activation of this strategic plan?
Not only was the input important, that it was built by the people who were going to implement this plan, it's important to understand that our work is really impactful across a lot of different divisions. So when we talk, we have 5 different directions, and those directions, the success of one direction is hugely dependent on the success of other directions. And so when
Yeah.
we think about, pillars felt really static to us, and in our culture, and in the United States and Western culture, you're often reading from left to right, top to bottom. I'm a graphic designer, so hierarchy of information is really important just for the sake of organization and clarity. But it was important for us to not rank or value one directive over another. And so pillars were not going to be representative of how we wanted to convey the strategic plan. So, given the area, the region of the Four Corners, there's a lot of Native American influence, and weaving and handcrafts are big here. And so, thinking about how those different directives impact each other, they weave together and they support each other in a way that makes a stronger bond. And you've heard this is not unique to Fort Lewis College, but you think of a braid, and those strategic pillars now become strands of a braid that are woven together, and the strength of the institution is now built and dependent on all of these pieces working together. And the 5 pieces are academics, being student ready, community connections. We play an important role in this region because we're really far from other higher ed institutions, 4-year institutions, reconciliation, and basic needs. And just an example of, many students, more students than we would like to admit, experience food insecurity, housing insecurity. When students aren't fed and they're coming to class hungry, they cannot be successful in their academic endeavors, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the community provides such an opportunity for networking, for internships, also for just basic needs services. So we're working in close connection with the community to support our students beyond just the classroom. And so all of those pieces now become, rather than a pillars that are top to bottom, always in the same order, we're very intentional. Not only do we represent them as this woven braid, they are intentionally, when they're represented across digital and physical print materials, they are scrambled in terms of like what does show up left to right, top to bottom. And there's some intentionality behind that because it means something bigger and broader.
And so it's kind of like this mixture of strategic plan meets design solution meets craft. And as you're talking about the braiding and like interweaving of all the different priorities that came within the strategic plan and how they kind of come together beautifully for the braid and for the bracelet. But how does one bridge that conversation internally, right? Because we're talking about different departments who have different goals and they're vying for the same pot of resources, right? And budgets aren't getting any bigger this year or next.
Right, that is so true.
So I'm curious of, we've got the design solution. We're doing, like you said, we're not doing this Western pillar top to bottom, left to right. We're going to do it in this really beautiful braid where everything is interconnected. How do you bridge that conversation internally where people are like, hey, but we're vying for different budgets. Who gets prioritized? What does this do? Where do I fit in with all of this? How does that conversation start?
I think it starts with, with transition came opportunity, right? So we've got
Mhm.
an outgoing president, a huge, national search for a new president, an incoming president. And so it starts with, hey, this was not developed in an office somewhere. This was developed from the ground up by the people who will implement and the community that it will impact. And so it starts there.
Mhm.
First, like, how did we get here? Where did this come from? Oh no, we all had opportunities we took over 1,000 pieces of feedback and input
Wow.
in order to develop this strategic plan. So it starts there. Like, how did we
Mhm.
get to the strategic plan? Where did it come from? Who built it? And it's us. Like, every single person has ownership there. And then you start looking at those different areas of campus. And yeah, you think about the push and pull in terms of resources. And it really, you have to communicate the way in which those things, the success of one is really dependent. They're so interdependent on one another. And you remind folks, like, we're all at the same table here. We're all trying to create opportunity for success beyond graduation for our students,
Right.
and helping them along the way. And every single bit of academics relies on the student being student ready, being the student support services, reconciliation for some of our students and many of our students, even whether they're Native American or they're not, their basic needs and their communications and their ability to make connections that will, launch them into the next phase of their lives, into success. So I think it came from us. It was built from us. We're going to implement it together. And
Yeah.
the success of our little area is really interconnected and dependent on the success of others. And when we think about it in that way, we're thinking about the bigger goal that we're all working towards. We're all working on the same team, for the same team, as the same team. And that's a really important piece. And I think the visual, and that's what we're here talking about, that's
Yeah.
unique in the tactic that we've implemented, is that visual really brings home something, not just visually, but tactile.
Yes.
And that comes in how we've implemented and communicated and socialized the strategic plan beyond just this printed document.
Because I mean, we're not as much as a cute accessory of everybody walking around with a PDF of a
Yeah.
printed PDF of, the strategic plan as an accessory. When you said that, like, that just made me think of those little things. And I actually was just talking about this with a friend this morning, like dopamine decor. Like, when you look around, like, your office or your home, and you're having a bad day and you look at that one thing and you're like, that brings back so many good memories. Like, I remember why I'm doing this now. And to have something tactile that kind of reminds people about that. Like, when you see, because when you all rolled out the friendship bracelets, like, this wasn't one, people are making the bracelets. Like, they're people are sitting down at the table next to the provost, next to the presidents, next to a senior and juniors and everyone together, like, making their friendship bracelet and being able to connect that back to something greater. So I love an opportunity to create FOMO, because you're walking
Yeah,
around
yeah.
and, like, in the hall, you're the only one without a friendship bracelet. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what's going on here? We need to unpack that. So
Friendship
I
bracelets are big in
yes.
our, college age students. They're kind of coming back. And
Yeah.
hilariously, when I introduced this to the cabinet as kind of the first go, um, there were some that were like, absolutely not. I am not doing this. And then there were some who were like, I can't believe we're doing friendship bracelets. I did this. And they, in high school, in middle school, at summer camp, and they went in and I had 5 different versions of weaving a 5-stranded bracelet, which was
Yeah.
insane. And then they were teaching and building the excitement with the people who were like, I don't do crafts, I don't do handmade
Mhm.
stuff, like, not going to happen. And these are the highest executives of our institution that
Yeah.
are interacting in a really out of the ordinary way of, like, this, environment of conversation, and very, maybe perhaps formal. It brought it allowed us to connect in a different way.
Mhm.
We learned things about each other, but we also helped each other,
Yes.
in ways that were just so unexpected. And then anytime you have some sort of tactile, something physical,
Mhm.
and you've got this visual representation. And just to make a note
And it
of the
all means
colors.
something, and it all
Yes,
means something. It's all
exactly.
intentional. Yeah.
Exactly. You've got multiple ways to engage with the strategic plan beyond just reading it, right?
Yes.
Beyond just listening to it. You're seeing it, you're wearing it, you're feeling it, you're interacting with it in a really intentional way. And to make a note of the colors too, we're very intentional. All of the
Mhm.
colors are representative of, things that are in this area. Native American turquoise, a lot of it is the flora and fauna of the area.
Yeah.
The sage, the goldenrod, sunsets in the desert
Mhm.
Southwest. We're not that far from the red rocks, and that's important. Those were used. Those are really representative of the place, and the place being instrumental in the meaning why a lot of us are here for a lot of different reasons,
A
but
lot of
place
reasons.
matters.
And
And
also, it's hard to think about what I liked about what you said too is maybe people who had pause or didn't wanna do it at first. It kinda reminds me of, like, what I talk about with, like, cotton candy and ice cream. Like, you cannot be sad and mad, like, eating like, eating cotton candy or ice cream. I find it so hard to believe that someone's just like, "Oh," just, angrily making a friendship bracelet. You just can't have that
no
experience, those 2
way.
things. So like, even just having almost not a forced positive experience, but the experience itself can be nothing but positive. Like
Right.
you're there in community and you know why you're making the bracelet. You know that the colors are intentional and you know that if you don't make the friendship bracelet, you're going to be the only one on campus without it. And that's not going to look cool either. So,
Yeah, and you do. You're doing this, and you're learning, and then you're teaching the next person, and then that person is teaching the next person how to do this.
right.
And you're like, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's do
It's
this.
cool.
Let's launch this strategic plan in a meaningful way." And it's that little simple reminder. You've got that sticker or that actual woven bracelet, and it's on your
Mhm.
water bottle. It's on your keychain. It's
Mhm.
tacked up on your bulletin board right behind your computer monitor. Like, it's
Yeah.
meaningful. It's that constant reminder of something bigger than just the work that you do on a daily basis.
So we're catching you pretty early in on the rollout. And obviously, one of the KPIs can be how many people are wearing their bracelet. But I'm curious to know what how are you all thinking about defining success? Because you all are doing this in a very again, sensory, hyper tactile piece, and also rolling out the strategic plan in a very visual way that includes students in a super I know we talk about hands-on learning, hands-on experience, but like
Mhm.
literally you gotta use your hands to make this thing. So wondering how you all define success and in your early rollout stage, what are some things that have been working and things that haven't been working so far?
So we're tabling a lot, like in our
Mhm.
student union. So students are coming by and interacting, and not just the implementation committee. We have student representation that are tabling and advocating for the strategic plan too. So they're
Mhm.
the ones. It's peer to peer, right?
Yeah.
Introduction and advocacy, even for their concerns or ideas. To go back to the implementation committees too. So we're engaging in a lot of different places, and we're engaging at events that also invite the community. So our community, the local community and the regional community is coming to campus, and they are engaging in the strategic plan in a way. Like, when does that happen where you're inviting the community to take part and ownership? I mean, they were part of the foundational development of input
Yeah.
that we brought in, but when that may not, they, in
It
some
just goes out into the
communities,
void.
yeah,
Normally, like, you
it may
have your
not.
little town hall and
Exactly.
people, fill out the survey or
Yep,
give ideas, and then they never see or hear or
exactly.
participate in it ever again.
But they get to come back around, and they're
Yeah.
engaging a second time, maybe a third time, maybe a fourth time, because they've interacted with the college in different ways. So just exposure, again, just socializing it. We're at the very early stages of communicating it out and promoting it. In the future, what we have in place in my mind next will be to gamify some of the strategic plans. So I
Yeah.
want to come up with ways in which not just building the friendship bracelet, but maybe we gamify so that there are prizes
Hmm.
and rewards for folks who know what the colors represent.
Yeah.
Can you name all five ways that, because students love that. And I think our staff can be really competitive. And so that's one way that I think we could start pushing it out and socializing it even further. And then we are working on a podcast, and this will have, I think it will have community and regional appeal, but it's really to celebrate the work that we're doing internally. So peer
Mm.
to peer, like, oh, my colleague down the hall, this is what they're doing. I'm doing something too. We're doing something together. I worked with so and so across campus, really to show and celebrate. I really think that that's one of the things that our newest president coming in is really intentional about. She wants to celebrate the good work that we've done. And this is not like we just started this good work. We've been doing this good work, but we are
Yeah.
articulating it in a way that's intentional and relational to one another across campus. And celebrating that and validating it and publicizing that is really important. And I think that's something that we're working towards too. And so we're working on a podcast that will start telling the stories of strategic plan implementation and how those pieces are working together.
So I know you mentioned the podcast, and obviously, I'm going to think that friendship bracelets are going to be hard to top. But what's next for you all and in your team as you think about? I know you mentioned gamify, podcast, but as you think about continuing to keep the momentum going, where does your mind go, and kind of what's next for what your team is rolling out to keep that energy moving forward?
Yeah, I think, we've worked on really showing up at different events across campus, and we have implemented communication plans. I think really our content strategy, that's the next place for growth
I
and
love a content
intentionality.
strategy
Right.
as a love it. As
So
soon as I hear that, I'm like, oh yeah, they're on the right track.
yeah, I mean, developing a content strategy through our social media, through our media in general, any kind of
Mhm.
communications, our news, we're pointing back to the strategic directions and implementation of the strategic directions in our storytelling across our social media channels, the way we're communicating in our recruiting initiatives, in our current student communications, really trying to socialize it at a deeper level and in a more intentional level across all of our multimedia channels, owned and earned, and beyond.
Well, thank you, Anna, for that. Like I know we're not supposed to have favorite episodes,
I'll take
but
it.
when I heard you talk about the friendship bracelet and the strategic plan, I'm like, oh my gosh, someone hasn't figured out a way to think about a strategic plan and rolling it out in a way that is so intentional and inclusive and just fun. Like, bringing some new life into this. And it's not like we're going to meet with students and we're going to have a talk and we're going to do couches and juice and it's going to no, like this is something that and as you've explained it, and I'll make sure I add photos to the web story of this for you all to go see it, but like students are putting this on their backpacks. Like they've got the sticker, like she talked about, as like a water bottle sticker. You see this on campus, and the cool thing about it is because it is campus wide, if you have a question about it, like what is this thing that I'm seeing everywhere, the likelihood of someone being able to answer you is high because it's becoming so ingrained in the culture of um of this university. And it's, yeah, I just love it, and I just think it's such a great tactic.
So beyond, you asked for next steps. One little nugget of something that I have taken on myself. There is a history professor who is known for his ties. He wears a different tie every single day of the year, and he has more than a year's worth of ties. And so I have worked on a strategic plan tie and taken
Stop.
the friendship bracelet and built him a tie for him to add to his collection. And I think he will be an enormous advocate, and it will start to get people to think, how else can we implement this beyond the strategic or the friendship bracelets. So
that is so cool. That is so cool. Thank you so much, Anna. Like you heard it here today, folks. Strategic plan can live off the paper. It can be fun. It can be crafty, but it just needs to be unique and intentional. So with that note, keep walking the walk and talking the tactics. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Talking Tactics. If you want to try out the tactics you heard on today's show, you get a full 10 from me, and I would love to hear about how you made them your own. You can find me by searching Safaniya, Safaniya on LinkedIn. You know, there's not many Safaniyas on there, so you'll be able to see me. And if you're enjoying Talking Tactics, please rate and review the show. The overachiever in me needs your feedback, and I'll certainly use it for confirmation or, optimization, depending on the review. And finally, if you just can't get enough great podcasts, the Enrollify Podcast Network delivers with an amazing selection of other marketing and admissions-based podcasts just for you. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com. See you next time.